Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are back for our weekly discussion, and I would like to initiate today's discussion, on the topic of language. We have taken uh, quite many interrogations on the nature of the mind, the nature of thought, the nature of awareness. And I think it has come to the point, it has come to this stage that now we start the exploration of language as well, as language is playing a very important role in our lives. So, just like every other discussion, we begin with the question, what is language? Okay? Now, I do not know how well you have looked at it. I do not know if you have ever asked this kind of questions to yourself, that what is language and how is it important in our life? What role does it play in our lives? But if you do ask it, if you do try to see it, then you would see that every day is full of language. Language is controlling almost every part of our lives. So it becomes very logical, very important to actually ask that what is this language that we use every day? I mean, we know what is the name of our language, we know how to speak it, but do we know the effects it creates in our daily experience of life? And that is what I would like to explore in these few coming episodes, and today as well. So, to see plainly and simply without making it something too heavy, without using any complicated words. Language is basically a structure, a system that humans have developed to communicate with each other. Okay? So, uh, animals also have it, but animals have it in the form of sounds. You would see dogs talking to each other with some growl, howling, or yeah, the cats are doing their own purrs. I do not know how it's exactly called. The dolphins use the waves, and the elephants use their own system. So every plant and animal species has some kind of communication method, which we can call language. And in the same way, humans have also developed. Now, because the human brain is a bit more complex than other animals and it's more evolved, we were able to develop many systems like this, okay, which we call different languages. Every region of a country, every part of a continent in the world has succeeded to develop their own systems to communicate with each other. And those systems are languages, okay? Now, language itself is an invented system, okay? So the question arises, do we take it like that? Okay? I'm pretty sure a lot of people who have never thought of it would even think that language is something we are born with. Okay? Or language is something very intrinsic to us. But if you try to ask a few questions about it, not a deep investigation, but even if you investigate a little bit, you would see that a child learns how to speak slowly, and language is basically something we learn after we are born. Okay? So it's not that intrinsic to us. It is not like a inborn capacity that we are born with. So it's a system that we have developed according to our region, according to where we are born, to communicate with each other. Now, the reason to communicate with each other is to have some kind of order among ourselves, okay? To have some kind of agreements, for example, or disagreements that maybe when humans were developing initial languages, it would have started by naming the objects around you, okay? Because naming the objects was much more easier to, because you can see those objects, the trees, the plants, and then every time you have to refer to a specific plant, maybe to arrange a meeting, maybe to when you have to go for hunting, that's your starting position. So maybe the language would have begun by naming objects, and then when you name objects, logically the next step comes that what should we do about that object, and who is to do about that object, right? And that's where actions would have come into the picture. So I think initially language would have started by nouns, by naming everything around you, naming trees, naming rocks, fruits, vegetables. And then eventually when you have named them, you also need to say what is to be done about them. And that's where verbs would have been coming into the picture. I name the tree, but I also need to say, what do I do with that tree? Do I climb the tree? Do I cut the tree? Do I run towards the tree? Do we meet under the tree? So all those possibilities open the moment I call the thing in front of me as tree. Okay? So the naming of the objects would have led to the connection of a certain process about that object, that okay, this is the object I'm talking about, and this is what I intend you to do, or this is the action related to the object that I want to convey through the language. And the third step would have been very logically, I think, if you have already picked it up, that who is supposed to execute that action. So we start by naming the objects, then we say what action has to be performed about that object, and then eventually you have to specify who is supposed to do that action, who will do the action. I, me, you, he, she, it, all those things started coming into the picture. So as a rough idea, okay, I'm not a very good historian, I'm not a very good expert of how the languages have developed, but on a common observation, it appears like that if you have to start from scratch without any help from anyone to develop a language, I think these would be the natural steps, that you wouldn't start coming up with verbs straight away. The first obvious step would be to name things, to start with the nouns, rocks, trees, fish, water, whatever you are concerned with. So this is how I think basic development of language would have taken place. And as the verbs started having more and more concrete meaning, okay, and this is now a very important step. The moment I learn a new word, the first time I use it, or anyone uses it, first time you use it, it doesn't feel like it has a relationship to you, okay? If you have learned a new language, that's what you would feel, that you don't feel the emotion of the language. You know the word and you are using the word, but there is no emotional connection with it. And I think that is what happens when the words are used over a longer time. Then those words start to have their own reality, okay? When I use the word tree over and over and over and over and over again, for me, the actual tree becomes the word. I hope I'm trying to convey something here, that until I don't have the word tree, I have the actual stuff in front of me, something standing in front of me, okay? And I call that thing a tree. Now, because my experience with the tree has been with the visual interaction. That is what the connection I have with the tree, that visual image I have of the tree. But the moment I start calling it tree, 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 day after day after day, the word tree starts to be a part of the tree. And slowly, it becomes very difficult for me to separate the word from the actual tree. Okay? And this can happen also with when you have interaction with some person. You meet a new person, and how the person looks and talks is more connected to you than the name of the person straight away. And then you use that name a lot, and then the name and that person start becoming one together. Okay? So the moment the language was getting used more and more and more, language was becoming embedded into the objects themselves. And then comes a point where when you see a tree, you totally neglect the actual tree, but the word becomes more important than the actual entity which is standing in front of you. So you see the tree and you straight away say, it's a tree. That calling it a tree, that naming it a tree, tells your brain that it already knows what is it that is in front of it. Okay? So naturally, when you name something, and you name something with confidence, you name something with a feeling of assertion that yes, this is that. That very naming is an act of confirmation for the brain that yes, the brain is aware what is that thing in front of it. Okay? So sometimes you would know what the name of a tree is, but you wouldn't know anything else about that tree. And you would still have a feeling that you know what that tree is. Okay? And I'm using tree just as an example because I'm surrounded by a lot of trees right now. But it could be a rock, it could be your dog, it could be anything. So the whole point is that as you keep using the language, as you keep using the words, the nouns, those nouns start taking the space, the place of the actual thing. Okay? And then all the effects that can happen to the word, to the language, are also applied to the actual object. Okay? Someone says you have an ugly dog. Okay? Now, maybe the dog is very clean and it looks actually perfectly fine, but just because it has been said about your dog, which is a word, the word dog has been called ugly, you think the actual dog is also ugly and you feel hurt. Okay? Now, this is a very simple and very rough example I'm taking at the moment, a quick one. Just to say that the word dog starts becoming so embedded, so together with the actual dog, that if someone says about the word, you take it for real that your actual dog has been called ugly or whatever. Okay? So this effect of language is actually very, very much neglected in our daily lives. Okay? The actions have the same effect, and then the personal naming has the same effect. So can you start looking at it in your daily life, that how when you use a word, you start by already connecting the word or already considering the word equal to the object. You forget that the word is just a name. It's a human-made construct. It is not something real as the object itself. The word rock is not the actual rock. The actual rock has so much variety, so many shades, so many patterns and everything. And it's full of interest. So if I look at the rock, I could find 10 things. But if I just call it a rock and move on, and I say, yeah, I knew what that thing was. It was a rock. I saw it. Then I missed all of that. And the reason uh, I, I miss all of that is all because the, the word gives me the illusion that I know it. Just because I know the name of it, I create an illusion for myself that I know the whole of it. Okay? Just because you know the name of a person, because you've met the person a few times, doesn't mean you know the whole person. Okay? But the step towards the people we will take a little bit in the next episodes. At the moment, in this episode, I would just like to uh, introduce you to this effect of language, that can you start seeing that the word itself is not the actual thing which is in front of you. The word is just the name given to the actual thing in front of you. Okay? The objects, the people, the things which are right in front of you have been given a lot of names. And those names are just names. They are not something realistically actual. A name, I would go that far even to say, a name is just an imagination. It's an imaginary entity given by humans to an object just for convenience. Because when I use that imaginary entity name with other humans, it's just easier to cooperate, it's just easier to do things. It doesn't mean that the name is the actual thing. Okay? So please try to see this in your everyday life. Can you be aware of this process happening inside of you, that how your mind takes the word as the thing. The mind is saying, okay, the word is equal to the actual object. Car. The word car becomes equal to the actual car. The mind takes them same. Can you see this process happening? And then we would move on with some other effects of it, and then eventually we would connect it to experience, how experience is created by this whole process. So we would see how our language is taking part in our daily experience of life. So language is not something small that you can neglect. Language is not something that you're like, it's just language, I know this, and be done with it. No. Language has a huge part in our daily experience of life. So I would request you to observe your daily movement of how you take the word as the thing. And then we will move forward with some more investigations. So I hope you're having a nice week, and we will meet again next time. Thank you very much.